My name is Amanda Ring, and this is Flight of the Feminine. Here on Flight of the Feminine, I'm inviting you to explore and reclaim all things feminine, the divine and the dark. To awaken your womb and heart consciousness, I'm inviting you to open to the realms of energy and spirit, to evoke empowerment and create sovereignty. As a sacred soul, each one of you are on this journey through life. Welcome back to Flight of the Feminine. You are a light being. It is true. You are not mere flesh and bone. You are a soul having a human experience, and the essence of your soul self is energetic and vibrational. We're going to get into all of the woo, and I'd really like to start with that word. You, like lots of people, have maybe even said, or at least heard somebody say, "Oh, are you into all that woo?" "Oh, here she goes," or he goes with all that woo stuff again. "Oh, that's so woo." All of those comments. Most often, they have a tone that's dismissive or even derogatory. The first thing I want to say about that is that I have a lot of compassion, actually, for the people who do make those comments along with other things that they don't understand. Because most of the time, those folks, it's just something they're not familiar with. It's out of their comfort zone. They've also been influenced by general societal prejudices and judgments around spiritually based things. And what we don't understand, typically we have a fear of, or we reject, or we step back from. So when people can sort of make fun of it or talk about it in that kind of dismissive way, it actually helps them step back and create a space from something that they're maybe not quite sure about. And it's not really personal. So I always remind myself of that. And I'm also actively now sharing what I'm going to share with you with others, depending on the person and the circumstance, to educate them about the woo. So I didn't know this until a couple of years ago. I was studying with a woman called Sarah Thomas in her Temple of Stone course. Now, for many, many years, and since the time I was a child, I have been interested in all things like crystals, bones, talismans of all sorts, wood, feathers, you name it. I've been fascinated by them and what their symbolism is. And even my anthropology and archaeology degree took me deep into that from both a spiritual and cultural perspective. So when I was studying with Sarah, and she is an incredible teacher. If you aren't familiar with her work at all, she has, I think it's called the Upper Clarity School. She's based out of the US, but her work is, of course, worldwide. And she is a seasoned acupuncturist as well as a medicine woman in her own right. She has studied within the ancient Taoist traditions, and that's where the Temple of Stone birthed from, because she uses crystals in her acupuncture work as well. And during the training with her, she talked about the woo. And she educated us on that term is actually an ancient Taoist word for medicine woman. And that, like other languages, especially our Eastern languages, when that word is put with other words, it takes on a different meaning. There's something called the Wu Wei, which is intentional action to be in a state of non-action, which sounds kind of contradictory, but it is essentially meaning the state of being. So I thought that was fascinating when she shared it. And I was like, okay, this is brilliant. I could reclaim this word that gets so dismissed and has lost its sacredness in a way in our culture, in the culture I'm predominantly been involved with in my life. So it is spelt W-U, not W-O-O. So that's why even in my trailer, I commented on, you're going to get lots of woo in these shows, or some of these shows in any case, because that is who I am. And that is a big part of what fascinates me about life. And really, when we react to something someone says that we find offensive, if we're truly embracing and accepting of who we are, we can kind of let that roll off. Sometimes, depending on what it is, we might need to be in a different state of empowerment and speak to it. But other times, we can just embody the fact that we like that about ourselves, that we appreciate that. And I don't need that person to align with it. I don't need them to be into the woo. I don't need for them to like it. I do hope and appreciate and expect people to respect me, that I'm different to them, just that basic fact. But we don't need to get into all of this anger and judgment back to the person. Sharing that with you right off the start, because I think it's wonderful for us, especially for women who are really opening to and exploring their spiritual side and really fascinated by all things in the spiritual realm, including crystals and sound healing and journey work, maybe plant medicine. And across the globe, this is having a resurgence. So it's not just women, but as I'm speaking to my fellow sisters here, claim it, own it, and who gives a shit if anybody else doesn't get it? Own it for yourself. So with that segue, we're going to move into this whole concept that you are a light being, not just a human being. And I absolutely love the etymology of words. So meaning the root of when these words got formed and when they start getting used and sort of what their root original meanings are. So when you look at the word human being, the word human was first recorded in the mid-13th century, and it's connected to the Middle French word humain, or humain, probably, Humain. And that translates to mean of or belonging to man. That word, in turn, comes from the Latin humanus, thought to be a hybrid relative of homo, meaning man, and humus, meaning earth. Therefore, a human, unlike birds or planes or even the divine spirits above, which we're going to talk about more, and the light being sense of things, human is a person, or in a direct translation, a man firmly rooted to the earth. And actually of the earth. So I think this is fascinating. And then, of course, the word being, the root of it, that's the verb, but the root of it, to be, is our I am essence, to exist, to be. Pure existence. Also, I discovered, though, that the Proto-Germanic etymology also includes it to mean not just to exist, but to grow. So this is really interesting to me. Human being, of the earth, existing in a state of being a person, but there is this I amness to it. That's the being part, which is such a juicy place to start your reflection and consciousness expansion around. So not only a human being, you are also a light being. And just for a quick moment, I'm just going to backtrack. And because if you're jumping into the show series here, in a previous episode, episode 3, Your Body is Talking, Are You Listening? I shared information and practices to help you strengthen your connection to your authentic body wisdom, your instincts, and intuitive knowing. And this has more to do with your energy as much as it has to do with your actual cognitive awareness. And my hope in that episode was to help you to start listening better to what your body and your feminine wisdom and your energy is communicating to you. This more of this being part of you. So if you haven't listened to that yet, grab a cuppa of something warm and nestle into a cozy spot and listen when you can. In episode 2, before that, I touched on the existence of your electromagnetic field, emotional awareness and energy connected to your words and your thoughts and how they shape reality. So that's another one you might want to listen to if you haven't. And even if you have, go back and listen again after you listen to this one, because it's going to help weave everything together. In that episode, I mentioned your electromagnetic field, and now I'm going to refer to this as your light body. And this is where we're going to jump into the woo of your light being and the light body. I'm going to list off some other words that you may have heard, have said yourself to describe the same thing as your light being or light body. Your aura, the astral body, the subtle body, the pranic body, the luminous body, light body, etheric body. So all of these terms are synonymous with the light body. Your light body, your light beingness is again steeped in energy. This subtle field, along with your physical body, is you have our physicality, our mass, and then we have our subtle field, our energy body, our light body. And it is pure energy. The subtle field, the subtle body is pure energy. What that means is a combination of light frequency and vibration that has no mass, but it absolutely influences mass. It influences every bit of mass of our physical body, and it influences all of the mass around us. And all of the mass around us also has an energetic, subtle field that influences us. So we are in this constant weaving experience of frequency, of light, and vibrational experience. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The first one that's really connected to conventional modern medicine that some people probably are familiar of, especially if they have kidney stones themselves. Vibrational technology is becoming more prominent now and more in the public awareness. In the general medical community, a prominent treatment for kidney stones is actually sound frequency, vibration to break up kidney stones. So anyone who's had kidney stones where the stones are too big to pass and could actually be dangerous and excruciating, because it's not fun to pass them to begin with, no matter what size they are, the gold standard way to break those stones down is through sound vibration. And they will break the stones up into minuscule pieces so that the person can pass them through their urine more easily. That's just one example. Our subtle field connected to our body and our light being is typically invisible to the naked eye, but it's not invisible to our psychic sensibilities. It is absolutely connected to our nervous system, so it's much more felt than seen. And those that have an ability to connect and grow and nurture their psychic sensibilities will often describe experiences with energy or their energy field of others by being able to see colors or feel something or hear something or know something about the field. And that's for another podcast. But I want to give you another couple of examples of this sense of the light body being invisible to us, but being an experience that we have directly. So back in episode 3, I gave the example of walking into a room and feeling immediately uncomfortable, ill at ease. Well, this is your light body, your subtle body, your energy body, mingling with the frequencies in that room, including the people and even including what has happened in that space, in that room since it was built. So that's mingling, and what's getting picked up is what's in resonance and what's dissonant. Think about this as like tuning a radio station. You know, the radio station goes off its tuning and gets scratchy. And this is kind of what happens in our field when things are not in an aligned or coherent state. So that's another example for you. And actually, back in 1939, there was a Russian couple who created a diagnostic tool that was originally called electrography, but is now more commonly called Kirlian photography. And what they had discovered is they were able to capture coronal discharge around objects, including humans. And what a coronal discharge is an electric discharge caused by the ionization of gas or fluid around an object. They were able to capture images produced by this electrograph that was capturing the aura, life force energy, prana, chi, moving, and emotional states of the subject or the person. They were able to capture this in photos. I think it's fascinating that we now are also developing more tools and technology that are helping to prove what the ancient people of this entire globe have known for thousands and thousands of years and have translated through their folklore and their folk medicine and their shamanic practices and understandings that were just not explained in the way modern science would explain it, but it is absolutely validating what has been known for thousands and thousands of years. And that leads me into the next little part I want to share is I have a background as a clinical occupational therapist, and I'm a Capricorn, so I love all the knowledge-based things. However, I'm also a shamanic practitioner, and this goes back even to my childhood when I just had a knowing that everything was alive, and I had direct communication, which sounds very strange, but I had direct communication from the wind and the trees, and I could feel the presence and spirit of things that everything had intelligence. And I just didn't have the language or the level of consciousness to understand it that way as a kid. And sometimes it absolutely did freak me out because I didn't know what I was really experiencing and there was no one to really talk to about it. And that I know for certain is why I was drawn towards anthropology and archaeology, because I was drawn to all of these ancient and indigenous cultures and how they understood the world as this big web of life that's communicating within it and to each other all the time. Shamans are known to be able to weave between the realms of the ordinary, earthly plane, and the non-ordinary. They can commune and connect with matter and spirit. They understand all shamanic cultures fully believe and understand and work with that each human being has a luminous energy field that surrounds their physical body. And the purpose of this field has several functions. It's a record keeper of all of our emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual experiences, including our trauma. And it has our imprinting and carries our patterns, just like our physical body carries patterns in pain and organ function and all of this. Our luminous body carries this as well, and actually carries an etheric blueprint exactly of your physical body. And this is why shamans, energy workers, light workers, intuitives can actually work remotely at a distance with your being. So with your physical being, your emotional and mental states, they are able to work within the matrix of that because light frequency and vibration, it bypasses this idea of time-space continuum. The shamanic realm and energy healers understand that that is somewhat of an illusion, and they have a direct experience with connecting with people, their whole being, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and etheric, and that they can help decipher what is happening for that person and help support their wellness. Within that blueprint of the luminous field, it has information about our potentiality as well. Not just what has happened. It is what has happened this life, past lives. It's what's happening right now. It's record keeping. And it also has access to future timelines. And so it has our potentialities in it, how we are most able to heal. So it really is this amazing catalog of past, present, and future experience. Cross-culturally, like I said, every culture, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the African tribes, the ancient Chinese, the Sumerians, the Australian Aborigines, like every ancient culture, and in most of our ancient cultures would be termed indigenous because they worked and lived so closely with the earth and everything on the earth, within the earth. They all acknowledged the energy body. How many bands of energy and how many bandwidths and how many chakras or energy centers there were varies slightly, between cultures, but they all acknowledged this. And it's mentioned in all cultural, esoteric, and mystical practices globally. It is most often that the medicine men and women of these peoples were working intricately with the systems of the subtle body. And as I mentioned, this is how remote healing can actually happen. We are working with the field of the individual, quote unquote, that is part of a greater matrix or web of frequency, vibration, and I would say consciousness. There is intelligence in it that we are discovering more and more about all the time with leaps in quantum physics and other areas of research. I've just read something about, I think it's called optogenetics. Not epigenetics, but optogenetics. And it's how they're using light frequency through the eyes to shape and change neural functioning. Anyway, I just read about it and I just skimmed over it. But that's something else that's fascinating to see how what our subtle body is made of is getting more explored, and light frequency, sound frequency is being used to support our health. So you might ask yourself, why is this important for me to know? I've shared some examples of how it's already in use. And we know that crystal technology has been used and is used currently in watches and radios, and your laptop and your phone all have these microcrystals in them because they can fracture light and sound and different types of wavelengths, whether, again, I'm not an expert on this, but I know that it has been used and it is currently being used in a lot of our technology. So why this is important and even essential for you to be aware of or curious about is because we are moving more into this state as human beings. But more than that, exploring the whole concept of being more than just your human body and being here for this finite life beginning to end and the set of experiences you should or shouldn't have connects you to something greater. The whole idea of having a soul self or a higher knowing and being connected to this web of life is really comforting. And because at the root of our humanness, we ache to belong. We ache to feel connected. And this goes beyond our human connections and relationships and all the emotional and psychological pressure we put on ourselves around that. So you are connected to the source of life itself. You are it. And so this really helps us see life as something spiritual, something sacred. It helps you expand your consciousness and your capacity to open your heart. And this idea of heart consciousness is something I'm really working with in my own life, but also with my clients and in community, because this is how our humanity evolves. And I already mentioned in a previous episode of how the actual anatomical heart has its own electromagnetic field and how it is 60 to 100 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field of the brain. Because essentially we are spiritual, heart-based beings. And this is the Aquarian age where we deeply remember this and we change how we live with one another and how we live with the planet and how we create the future for the children that are here and those to come. Modern research does show also that when we are connected to a sense of something greater, a spiritual sense, or that we can connect to life having sacredness and meaning, our mental and emotional wellness improves immediately and significantly. This creates so much hope for people, especially at this time on the planet when there is so much despair, there is so much conflict, there is so much confusion and chaos happening, and that is helping in a way, but as a byproduct, to invite us to go deep into our hearts and look for a new way. So looking to your existence as a light being, not just a human being, is a really beautiful way to start to feel like you can take some empowered action when things feel hopeless and you might feel helpless to what's happening in the world, because it starts with yourself. And another piece, which I'll talk about in a future episode, that'll be around the ascension process and what's happening on the planet and how the earth energies are changing and how the galactic energies and the solar energies are changing and how that directly impacts us. But we know we are now evolving. Those that live and work and are in the orbit of this kind of thinking and experiencing life, we are evolving in a way that we are embodying more of an expanded light field. Our auric field is expanding. It's changing. It's getting new coding, if you will. There are new aspects getting activated, including your DNA and how your DNA connects to light and vibrational frequency. That's a whole other topic as well. We truly are in the prophesied time of the Aquarian age where we become spirit on earth. We don't wait to leave our physical body when we die or the physical body dies to embody our spirit nature. We are having that experience and have the capacity to have it now on earth. This is the time of heaven on earth. We are becoming more luminous than humanous. And I share all of this with the caveat that you can take it or leave it or take it. Whatever resonates with you, piques your curiosity, wonderful. What doesn't? Also wonderful. Everybody is where they're meant to be, and what you believe is your own choice. So as I share that, I invite you to also consider this when you're in conversation with other people who have different beliefs or have different spiritual leanings. You don't have to always agree in order to feel valid or to validate them. Respect is important. As a level of tolerance for difference is essential in this world, especially now. Always has been, but especially now. So I invite you to even explore taking that approach or mindset to your life and your beliefs. We're getting close to the end of the episode, and I would love to just share with you a basic description of your light body, which informs you as a light being, and your light being higher soul self is informing your light body, communicating through it. It's the light body translates information to your consciousness, to your psyche, to your mind. So let's start with the basics of what is the aura. The light body and all of its various parts is very complex. So I'm going to keep it real simple. And I am still a student of this because there is so much to know and understand. And it's not about learning it all mentally. It's about having the experience. And that's why I keep giving you examples and wanting you to connect in to your physical and energetic experience, because understanding something mentally is very different from having an embodied experience of it. So the aura is, as I mentioned in a previous episode, is usually like an egg shape around your body and connected to your body. It's a torus shape. So this is like an egg-shaped donut with that hole in the middle. And if you can picture your body right in the center of that, and it having all kinds of layers in that egg, in that orb, there's bandwidths within it. And they have different functions and they are communicating with one another. Think about all the systems in your body. We've got the respiratory system, the cardiac system, the lymphatic system, the digestive system, the nervous system. They're all communicating with one another. They're very interconnected. Well, this is the same in your light body. We have an understanding descriptively as them being sort of layers, and each of those layers connected with specific parts of your being, the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, that sort of thing. Similarly, this is like the Earth Mother, the Earth, which has energy lines, earth currents. Lots of people are familiar with the term ley line, but a ley line and an earth current are different. We'll talk about that in another show. And there's also portals on the earth, often where all these sacred sites are, but there are actually all kinds of them all over the place. And these are similar to your chakras. The chakras are at the center of your auric body. And lots of people who practice yoga, even meditation and other spiritual practices, even if you see an acupuncturist or a cranial sacral therapist or a reflexologist, they might talk about your chakras or your energy fields or the meridians in your body, or a Chinese doctor might speak to that. If you're seeing a naturopath that does bioenergetic testing, they may be also talking to you in terms of energy. Well, these chakras are vortices. They are wheels. Chakra actually means, in Sanskrit, it translates to mean a wheel. So it's a spinning wheel. These vortices have a front and a back, and they're aligned along your spine. And they start at the base of your spine and they go to the crown of the head. So most people are familiar with the primary 7 chakras: the root, sacral, navel, heart, throat, third eye, and the crown. These are processing centers. They take in and send out information, but when they take in information, vibrational, light frequency, sound frequency, other forms of photonic and plasma light frequencies, they translate it and they process it and they send that information through your being, through your physical body, and it will process what needs to stay and what needs to go. So this is like if you've ever gone for acupuncture or even acupressure, even massage, they are moving the energy through the system from your tissues. And we also know how much emotional energy gets held in the tissues. So those primary chakras help organize the energy that's coming in through this extended field around you. Each one of these chakras, the 7 chakras, also are symbolically, spiritually connected to an earth element like water, earth, fire, light, ether. They're all connected to a specific color, specific geometry, a specific sound frequency, different body parts, different organs and glands. So when people start working with the energy field and the chakras, and even studying yoga, different movements were meant to not just stimulate the physical body's health, but to stimulate the energetic body and move prana or life force energy through different parts of the body, and it would have impacted these chakras very specifically. Each of the chakras are also associated with a psycho-emotional state, so certain emotions and certain thought patterns. And so when you start looking at your own healing and you look at your patterns and you start looking at traumas, you will be looking both at your physical body, but it's essential to look at your light body as well. And both of these will inform what's going on with your emotional and mental and psychological states as well. I've actually personally seen and experienced seeing people's chakras really retracted and constricted. And there's also some important cords that connect to the greater field of energy from the crown and the root. And I've seen that psychically be frayed and weakened. There can be tears and leaks in the energy field. And the ancient yogis, among other traditions, believe that dis-ease begins in the energy field. And this is most impacted by the energetics of your emotions and your thoughts. And that when there is incoherence in the field, the energy field, the longer that stays there, it will eventually manifest into the physical plane, into the physical body. And we do know in modern medical science and psychology and psychiatry how our emotional state directly impacts the physical state of our body and organ functions and disease process. That is widely acknowledged. So we don't have education around energy hygiene. We don't have education, generally speaking, around this field and the health of it and what impacts it and how you can tend to it and how you can care for that part of yourself. That's part of the work that I do and am passionate about. And it's fascinating. Just like your physical body and your psychological state can hold trauma, so does the subtle field. And energy can get pinched off and blocked and weakened. And really what we're doing as light workers, energy workers, shamanic practitioners is we're trying to bring in the law of nature to bring things back into the state of harmony, the state of highest coherence, so that all of the systems work well together. And this is exactly what nature does all the time. And we are nature itself. And we have forgotten that as a society. We live in our heads, not in our bodies and our hearts and our energy. And as we return to this, life has an opportunity to become aligned with a state of thriving, not just making it through every day. Two key experiences that can help bring your subtle field back into coherence and support your physical and mental and emotional wellness to come back into harmony is the experience of love and acceptance. There is research being done where they're testing how the frequencies of these emotional experiences and psychological states and how big of an impact or how little of an impact they have on our immediate state of being and continued state of wellness. Love really is a psychological state that's created. It is an experience that's created by our actions and our thoughts and our emotions. We create it. We create love. It is one of the strongest motivators and manifestors of change. The other being self-acceptance and acceptance of others. This is what's been found in recent research, and I was looking for the reference, but couldn't find it. So when I do, I'll absolutely share it. But there's been a recent study about this, and everyone was assuming that love would come in as the highest frequency, but it was acceptance, which I think speaks volumes to this innate need for us to feel like we belong. And not just to others or to a culture or to a family, but to life, to ourselves. As we try to come into a greater state of coherence and learn about how our light body affects our living as a human being and a light being, this is through this intentional awareness of your feelings, your emotions, your consciousness, how you co-create with life, and why I'm sharing the various things that I am. Some specific ways that we can immediately shift the state of the light body and your wellness is through sound and frequency, in particular, the breath. So in a future episode, possibly the next one, I will be diving into the power of the breath as a gateway to healing, empowerment, self-love, and liberation. Breath as a wisdom keeper. So I'm going to end on a quote by a woman that I really appreciate, and I follow her work as both a psychotherapist and a shamanic practitioner and an astrologer. Her name is Heather Ensworth, and she has wonderful YouTube videos that you can connect with if you're curious more about her work. She says in a recent book that she co-wrote, I'm sorry I don't have the reference, I will get that to you as well. But the quote is, "Synchronized embodiment calls us back into awareness of our body. We must pay attention to trauma that needs attention first. You need to honor and communicate with that part of your body to get to know how to heal. We heal when trauma comes into awareness. Just below our skin, we have the fascia that provides the body with a whole matrix of support. And when we pay attention to our breathing and our movement, we will start to notice an internal shape changing. Our breath can stop us from feeling emotion. The act of holding our breath at the times we are shocked cements that emotion at the time. We cannot connect with our spiritual body by leaving our body, but instead by connecting and coming back through our body. So I look forward to exploring more with you about healing, and in particular about the breath as this wisdom keeper and tool we have with us everywhere we go. And on that note, I'm going to sign off and invite you to like, share, and check out my website, my social feeds, my online courses, and any of the other resources you see linked in the show notes as resources for your own journey. Share them with others, maybe leap in and explore deeper on your own. It's time, my sisters, to elevate your mind, expand your feminine heart, explore your inner wisdom. Let's soar together. Sending you all big, big love.
This is Story Studio Network.